I think that's why I'm still alive today. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And I mean,
Bill, the air is less polluted, the water is less polluted. As countries get richer, they pollute less. When they're industrializing, they pollute more. There might be individual environmental toxins, yes, but as a broad description of the status of OECD countries, we are polluting on net less.
It depends on where you live, first of all.
Yeah. That's right.
Out here in California, I believe I'm breathing in the fire still.
You ever notice how in today's world, things that were once just plain common sense are suddenly treated like controversial statements? You say something obvious, something your grandmother, your farmer neighbor, or even a 5-year-old could understand, and instantly you're labeled a bad guy. That's exactly what happened on Bill Maher's show when the panel got into one of the most basic questions humanity has ever asked. What is a woman? And let me tell you, this wasn't some casual debate. This was about the UK's Supreme Court handing down a ruling so clear it's almost embarrassing that it even needed to be discussed. Their decision was simple. A woman is defined by biological sex. Translation? J.K. Rowling was right all along. Imagine that. After years of her being mocked, bullied, and smeared, Britain's highest legal authority just confirmed what every society has known since the dawn of time. But here's the shocking part. While the UK is finally catching up with reality, America's top legal and political figures are still stumbling all over themselves trying to answer this basic question. Lawmakers and activists act like this is some great mystery no one can solve. Really? Humanity has been around for thousands of years, and now we suddenly forgot how to define half the human race? Give me a break.
It's a big ruling this week in England. The Supreme Court, their definition of woman is biological sex. To put it in shorthand, J.K. Rowling won.
Yes. J.K. Rowling won. Everyone who said this for years has won. All the, particularly women who've been defamed and lied about and bullied and chased and much more for years, they were right. And I just think, apart from being a statement of the obvious, isn't it amazing that the best legal minds in Britain spent years having to work out the first thing we knew as a species?
And here's the truth. This whole thing isn't about clarity. It's about creating confusion. The people pushing this gender ideology circus don't want real answers. They want chaos. They want a world where biology is negotiable, truth is optional, and reality bends to whatever hashtag happens to be trending this week. Now, don't get me wrong. Nobody's denying that transgender people exist. Nobody's saying gender dysphoria isn't real. That's not the issue. The issue is the difference between acknowledging reality and erasing it. A man is a man. A woman is a woman. Period. You can identify however you want. You can live however you want. But pretending biology can be rewritten because of feelings, that's not science. Feelings don't override chromosomes. That's just a fact. But of course, the conversation didn't end there. Things really heated up once the topic shifted to children. And this is where America, unfortunately, is leading the charge in all the wrong ways. Under Biden's policies, kids who can't even legally buy a beer are being told they can self-diagnose and decide if they want hormone blockers or even surgery. Think about that for a moment. The same child who still believes in Santa Claus is somehow considered wise enough to make permanent medical choices. That's not compassion. That's madness.
To be clear, we're not saying there's not such a thing as trans, right? We're not saying there's not such a thing as someone who is quote unquote born in the wrong body.
I don't think people get born in the wrong body now.
Oh, I do.
I do.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a default setting for humans.
Yeah.
Like, we should acknowledge that. It's not just every time there's a baby, ooh, who knows what it is. That's crazy. But there are...
Beyond me, yeah.
But there are variations.
There are variations.
Homosexuality.
That's right. It's a continuum.
And then, you know, but it's how we handle that.
That's
you know?
right.
I mean, and I think we would agree that, you know, children, and this is where America is now an outlier country. We're the only country that went full, and I guess Trump is reversing it, but certainly under Biden, who went fully toward that. Like, we don't care what age, kids can self-diagnose themselves. I mean, that to me was going way too far.
And it gets worse. Democrats don't just support this in some cases. They've actually tried to criminalize parents who step in and say, no, you're not doing this to my child. Just stop and think about that. A government threatening parents for protecting their kids. And yet, when Tina Smith tried defending this nonsense on Maher's show, she flat out lied. She painted Democrats as this neutral, hands-off party that respects parental rights. Please, we've all seen the bills. We've seen the policies. Don't gaslight U.S. T.O. Maher's credit. He wasn't buying it. He went straight at the hypocrisy, pointing out exactly what millions of Americans are already thinking, that this whole agenda has gone way too far, and it's pushing away ordinary voters who just want sanity back in their lives.
It just comes back to the sensible center.
Yep. I mean, to me, the sensible center is that, like, you respect people, you trust parents, you let parents figure out what to do with their kids, and you don't need a bunch of politicians in Washington making decisions.
That is not the Democratic position, at least here in California.
Well, that's my position.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I think that's where the Democratic Party should. That is not the position that we've had here in California, which is like, don't tell the parents what the kids are doing at school. That's a whole, and that you really alienate.
And speaking of pushing away voters, Maher later dropped another truth bomb. He turned the focus on the Democratic obsession with identity politics. You know the drill. Divide people by race, gender, sexuality, and then pander to each group like you're ticking off a shopping list. Sure, that strategy worked once. Barack Obama rode it all the way to the White House. But here's the thing, that was 2008. The world has changed. Today, interracial marriages are at an all-time high. Multiracial identity is growing faster than ever. Regular voters are tired of being reduced to skin color or pronouns. They don't want to be treated like statistics. They want to be treated like individuals. But Democrats are still playing the same outdated game, and it's costing them. Maher, who is not even conservative, made it crystal clear. This isn't just lazy politics. It's political suicide. The more the Democratic Party leans into racial pandering and identity politics, the more they drive people away. Americans want solutions, not slogans. They want leadership, not lectures. And unless Democrats wake up, irrelevance is right around the corner.
If you like identity politics, this kind of thing is antiquated. From 2010 to 2020, the number of people identifying as multiracial in America went up 276%. 1 in 5 newlyweds now are in an interracial marriage, and that number goes up to 100% in ads for Subaru. You couldn't do a remake of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner today because almost 100% of Americans approve of interracial marriage, especially with rich in-laws.
But things got even more interesting when the topic shifted to RFK Jr. now. Whether you agree with him or not, one thing is obvious. He's been relentlessly attacked by the left for daring to think for himself. The moment he questioned mainstream narratives, he was instantly labeled a kook, a conspiracy nut, a lunatic. And Maher called it out perfectly that he said the problem isn't that RFK Jr. might be wrong sometimes. The problem is that he dared to be independent. The left doesn't punish you for being wrong. They punish you for refusing to repeat their talking points. That's the real sin, independence. And it's not just RFK Jr. Look at Trump. Look at J.D. Vance. Look at anyone who strays even a little from the approved script. The smear machine kicks in full blast. They don't debate you, they destroy you. And Americans are fed up with it.
What I read in the paper is he did speak on it this week. And I did not agree with the point of view of the article I was reading, which was that he's completely crazy because he was saying it's not mostly genetic, it's mostly environmental toxins. I happen to believe that's probably a more likely answer. And they were saying, well, no, genetics. And of course genetics is involved in everything health-wise. But to present the argument I saw framed in that way, that he's a kook because he thinks it's coming. I mean, environmental toxins is really the story of my lifetime. I'm glad I was born as old as I am at a time when everything wasn't completely polluted.
Then the show circled back to another heated topic, pollution. One of Maher's guests tried to argue that richer countries like the U.S. are actually polluting less because of cleaner technology, cleaner air, and cleaner water. On paper, that sounds nice, but Maher wasn't having it. He fired back with the reality Californians live with every day. Wildfires, plastic waste, microplastics in our bodies. This is the cleaner future we're bragging about, he asked. Please. Another panelist insisted that, overall, as nations get wealthier, pollution levels drop. That might be true in broad terms, but as Maher pointed out, it depends heavily on where you live. Out in California, people feel like they're breathing fire, and he's not wrong.
I think that's why I'm still alive today. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And I mean, but
Bill, the air is less polluted, the water is less polluted. As countries get richer, they pollute less. When they're industrializing, they pollute more. There might be individual environmental toxins, yes, but as a broad description of the status of OECD countries, we are polluting on net less.
It depends on where you live, first of all.
That's right.
Out here in California, I believe I'm breathing in the fire still.
And then came another knockout moment. Identity politics again, this time with a California twist. Did you know the state now is not just Amber Alerts for missing kids, but Ebony Alerts for Black children and Feather Alerts for Native American children? Apparently, skin color now determines how we search for missing kids. That's not progress. That's segregation dressed up in woke language. Maher tore into it, saying voters aren't fooled. The numbers prove it. Multiracial identities are exploding. Interracial marriages are the norm. America is more diverse than ever. But instead of embracing that, Democrats are clinging to outdated racial pandering, and it's backfiring badly.
A credit card's worth of plastic in our body on a weekly basis. So I don't know what you're talking about, like it's better than it used to be.
I'm talking about I can see the mountains from Long Beach, which I couldn't growing up. We pass rules, we do cleaner tech over time, and all rich countries do this. It is a process. It's a whole theory of the case called the Kuznets curve. It's a thing. It's worth reflecting on and respecting.
And he's absolutely right. People don't want to be divided anymore. They don't want leaders lecturing them with privilege charts or playing oppression Olympics. They want to be treated as human beings. Period. SO, when you put all this together, gender ideology, environmental hypocrisy, identity politics, you see the pattern. The Democratic Party is stuck in strategies that might have worked 10 years ago, but are now self-destructive. They're insulting voters' intelligence, alienating everyday Americans, and driving themselves toward irrelevance. Now, I'm not saying Bill Maher has every answer, but in this episode, he nailed it. He called out the lies, shredded the talking points, and reminded people that common sense, real old-fashioned common sense, is still alive, even if it's on life support. And that's why this conversation matters. Because if Democrats don't adapt, they won't just lose elections. They'll lose their relevance entirely. And in politics, irrelevance isn't just embarrassing. It's the kiss of death.so. Let me throw this to you. Do you agree with Maher? Is the left committing political suicide with identity politics and gender ideology? Or can they turn it around before it's too late? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one of them, and I want to hear where you stand. And hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because here's the truth, folks. Common sense isn't dead. It's just under attack. And the more we call it out, the stronger it becomes.
Is one reason Democrats lose elections. When Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi put on kente cloth, I don't think it earned them one vote for their powerful emotional ties to Ghana. Here in California, we're now segregating kidnapping. Really. California doesn't just have Amber Alerts for missing children. We have Ebony Alerts for Black children and Feather Alerts for Native American kids. What is that? We look for them by listening on the